But Brandon, we're going to move on. And of course, we don't have Sean Anderson of the Fast Break with us. He's going to be listening to this on YouTube or Blog Talk Radio, wherever he listens to the Primetime Podcast. And he is going to be quite upset that we did not invite him on for this segment. I'm sorry, Sean, but sometimes we've got to do it that way. And we're going to be talking about the Washington Huskies. And this is a team that Sean's been high on, of course, because it's one of his 3 college football teams. And he was telling us he picked Washington. He's like, oh, Washington's going to win. He didn't think they were going to blow Stanford out. But this Washington team has been good. And Brandon, you have said it in the past on past podcasts this season, but who have they beaten? Who have they beaten? Well, now they've beaten someone in Stanford. What do you think of the Huskies now? And could they turn this season into a potential playoff run type of a year?
Ricky, I think the biggest thing that you need to look at is they didn't just beat Stanford. They took Stanford's head and banged it against the wall for the entire football game.
They took them out back and took care of business, if you know what I mean.
I do. I do know what you mean.
Mom, where's Christian McCaffrey?
Jake Browning.
Dad took him out back, son.
That's Browning
basically what happened.
For 210 yards and 3 touchdowns. Gaskin 100 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Christian McCaffrey had 12 carries for 49 yards and 3 catches for 30 yards. He was useless. Christian McCaffrey and the entire McCaffrey team was useless.
The entire McCaffrey team. I love it.
They were awful. They were absolutely awful. And a lot of people would say not coming into this one, but after this one was over, what do they take away from this one? Was Stanford just that bad? Was Washington that good? And I think that people may be able to start to say, well, Washington might be just that good and just that consistently good. We talk about teams that have kind of hung right around the same ranking for the entire season. The Washington Huskies are one of those teams. They're ranked number 10 right now, but they are trying to fight their way up the ladder. They want to be a playoff team. They believe they're a playoff team. They're 5-0. They are 5-0 right now, and I think that this team is a team that you cannot certainly now, count out in the Pac-12. You just can't, because we all know that USC is not good. UCLA has struggled. Utah, okay. Utah's there, but I don't think that they have enough to be able to push them to the top. Arizona State, same thing. And then Oregon, they're not good. Cal, they're not good. Washington and Stanford. And Stanford's now got the loss against Washington.
Well, when it comes to the Pac-12, Washington's in the driver's seat because their main opponent is Stanford. They beat them. The only other ranked opponent at the moment that they're going to play, obviously things can change week in and week out, but Utah. Utah may be their toughest opponent so far this season. And they won't have to play Stanford in the Pac-12 title game because, like you said, they're in the same side of the conference. So they're done with Stanford, basically. They got that monkey off their back. When it comes to a playoff run, though, are they, at first I wanted to say, before I looked into it, the first thing I wanted to say is, no, they're just on the outside looking in. But after I look at it, if they go undefeated, win the Pac-12, we might have something to talk about because the ACC right now, it looks like, as of right now, it'd be North Carolina and Clemson again in the ACC title game now in Orlando, Florida, because the ACC pulled that game out of North Carolina. Let's just say it's Clemson. If Clemson wins the ACC, they're getting a playoff bid. They're getting it for sure. The Big 12, yeah, we got Baylor right now undefeated, so is West Virginia, but if one of those two teams wins, it's hard to give them an automatic nod because they don't play a conference championship game. The Big 10, Michigan's undefeated, Ohio State's undefeated, Nebraska's undefeated. You win the Big 10 undefeated, you're going to the playoffs. So that's 2 of your 4 slots already eaten up. The SEC, if Alabama goes undefeated, they are going to go. So I'm giving the SEC a playoff bid. That's 3 of your 4 already gone. That leaves me with 2 teams. Washington, who in this situation is going to win the Pac-12 for argument. And the other team I'm going to throw out there at the moment Houston. Houston's a team that people are going to talk about as a playoff team, and they would have a conference championship game that they would play. And if they go undefeated, here's the thing with Houston that we're going to see. Yes, Washington plays in a Power 5. Houston doesn't. But Houston played a number 3 Oklahoma team on the road, beat them. Well, technically on the road. It was at a neutral site at the NRG stadium where the Texans play. And then if they go undefeated, they'll have to beat Louisville as well. Right now, that's the number 7 team in the country. So really with Houston in this argument, you could say what's more important, the Power 5-ness of Washington or the type of opponents Houston beat? And at this point, I think that's the argument we're going to have when it comes to Washington and the playoffs.
I think it's more about, actually, Ricky, the opponents that Washington has played, because really both teams have only played one ranked team. And the team that Houston played was Oklahoma at number 3 to start the season. Clearly, they're nowhere near number 3 right now, but I think Stanford is more so true to their ranking, which was, what was it, 6, 7?
7.
I think they're going to hold more true to that than obviously Oklahoma would hold true to being number 3. So right now, I think that Washington and Houston are kind of in that same boat. Except, of course, Washington's coming from a Power 5, probably the weakest Power 5. But I think that as of right now, I'm not saying in general, I'm saying right now they're probably the weakest in my mind. But I think that right now, Washington probably be the better team if you want to rank them based on everyone that they've played and then throw in that ranked team. They're probably the better one. But you're going to disagree.
I'm not going to disagree, but I am, if that makes a little bit of sense.
No.
Washington, to me, just based on Power 5 alone, boom, right away, they should be up there. But if we're looking at who they played right now, you can put them ahead of Houston. Because like you said, that Oklahoma team was ranked 3, but they aren't who we thought they were. They have fallen off since. Where Stanford right now, number 7 team, they haven't lost any more games. Of course, we have to see at the end of the season. But after everything's said and done, if everything holds up right now, and it's 2 ranked teams, a Oklahoma and a right now 24 Utah, those 2 are similar. I think then you got to look at Stanford, and Houston would have to beat Louisville to be in this discussion. If Houston beats Louisville and Louisville's able to climb up a little bit more because they're higher than Stanford in the rankings coming into week 6, if they're higher in the rankings than Stanford and then Houston beats them, I think that might be a better win than Stanford. But at that point, it's all up to the committee. It's all up to what they think, because last year it was all, well, you got to win your conference championship. Well, both of these teams in this situation would win their conference championship.
I think that, yes, absolutely, it all comes down to what the committee believes, and we have talked so many times, what's the theme of the year with the committee? Is it wins?
This year
is
it's
it
going to be
conference? Is it parity? Is it who eats General Mills cereal the most? I think that, it's really kind of all up in the air. We talk about that all the time as well. But I definitely think that is going to be something that the committee will take a look at. But right now, I think that a lot of people could see those 2 teams as being very close together because of the fact that they've played a lot of not so great teams, and then they've both played one ranked team. However you want to kind of rank the ranked team, that's up to you.
And the one last thing I want to say is right now with the playoffs, how I ultimately see it, and I think, Brandon, you might be in the same boat. Right now, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big Ten, right now I see them all getting in. It's just that 4th spot, and right now it's either Houston or the Pac-12, because I don't see the Big 12 having it because of the conference game. One guy I wanted to bring up, though, before we end this podcast, just to give him his rightful due, because he is a big reason why this Washington team is doing so well, is quarterback Jake Browning. I mean, this is a kid where only a sophomore, I look at him and I go, I cannot wait to see you play next year as well. I cannot wait to talk about this kid in draft talks moving into the future and having him in mock drafts because he is something special. I mean, 3 touchdowns, no INTs against Stanford in that blowout. He had 4 touchdowns against Portland State. You're probably saying, but Ricky, it's Portland State. But at Arizona, able to go 2 touchdowns, 1 INT, even had had a touchdown on the ground that day. He's thrown for 5 touchdowns in a game. This kid is special, and Washington will go. Yes, they've got Gaskin in the backfield, but they're going to go as far as Browning takes them. Before I wrap up everything, before we get to Brandon Swanson's final minute, is there anything with the Washington Huskies that we didn't touch?
No, I think that we touched it all, actually.
Well, Brandon, this is where we get to the point of the podcast where Swanee's final thoughts. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so one of the things that I have today and what I think was kind of interesting, something that I was taking a look at on Twitter. Not Twitter. Not Twitter. It was actually Facebook, but I'm sure it's on Twitter as well. So one of the things, so everyone remembers Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Everyone remembers that from about, seriously, probably like 5 to 7 years ago, if not more. Pirates of the Caribbean coming out with another installment after we thought all the pirates were dead and down in the watery grave. They're coming back. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. I have no idea when that's going to be coming out, but they just had a poster released for the movie earlier today. I think that's exciting because I did like all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Was this one
and
we were
Keira
supposed to
Knightley
know
is
about?
also something to look at.
Were we supposed to know about this one, or is this like a surprise out of nowhere?
I don't know. Actually, I kind of feel like it's a surprise out of nowhere, but doesn't mean it is.
Hey, you know what? They'll make as many pirate movies just to make a little bit more money, right?
Absolutely.
Just a little bit more, especially
Absolutely.
with how much that Captain Jack Sparrow stuff sells. But that's going to do it for the Primetime Podcast this week. I want to thank everybody for listening. This is where I pump out the usuals. If you're listening on YouTube and you're like, man, this was a cool segment, you should go to our Blog Talk Radio page for the Primetime Podcast. It's blogtalkradio.com/Primetime Podcast. It's the most valuable podcast for the entire network. That's where you can get all of our full podcasts and listen to everything. Also, check out our Patreon page. We're trying to get lapel mics for our videos, so if you can check out our Patreon page, chip in a little bit, it would really mean the world to us. We love that you guys like, subscribe, share our videos. Patreon, we want to do more cool stuff for you guys. You can check us out on Twitter. Those are in the description. Before I hit you off with what I say at the end of every podcast, Brand's got one more thing to say. Go, Swanee.
The movie is set to be released in 3D on May 26th, 2017.
Well, that's going to do it. Now, as always, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.